Our church started in 2007, for those of you that don't know that. My family started attending in about 2009. What drew us to the church was the community relationships part, the gospel part, okay, walking through a book of the Bible, the teaching that was involved, and the generosity that permeated everything that we did and do. God kept us smaller, okay? We've never really been interested or focused on becoming a mega church. We want to grow, but we've been intentionally generous, and God has always provided. And He's always provided in such a way as that we've been able to out-hit our weight. I don't know if you follow boxing or those kind of things, but they say there are these boxers that may be 150 pounds, but they punch like a 200-pounder. They out-hit their weight. And we've been regularly told since I've started attending Christ Point that, hey, you guys give as a church that's a good bit bigger than you are. They're usually a bit surprised to hear that we're not bigger. And that's because we've been intentionally generous. What's interesting is that we were like a young family where we just didn't need to talk about money a lot. We had enough coming in. We covered the expenses. We paid our tithes. We gave. We went. We did it. And life was good. And we just kind of went along without having many conversations about what we're talking about today. Okay, so we're kind of new to this. Like, how do we talk to people about money because we're not good at it? Well, the only way to start doing it, or we're just not experienced at it. The only way you do it is by doing it. Okay, so we've been prayerfully moving because where we are now is we've had significant growth. Since we started here in 2020, God has blessed us. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of cars pass up and down this road every day. Thousands of cars. We've ended up in this barn because of COVID, because God saw fit. We met a need of a business owner, and we had a need for a place, and God put us together, and that's what happened. And that's continued to happen as we've continued to grow and continue to be generous. Our current lease in the barn here ends in June of 2025. We came to you in 2021 to purchase some land that James mentioned that Tommy Ayler gave us a really good deal on. A little over $500,000. It was worth double that. Now it's worth 3 times that, close to it, based on current estimates. We came to you, asked you to help us raise the money, and you showed up. Okay, we currently owe about $265,000 on that. Okay, here's where this gets good. Since then, as of the last time I checked last week, we have about $750,000 in the bank. Okay, God has been really good to us. We are at a place where we need to figure out what we're going to do with this land because the lease ends. The county owns this property now, and they want to use their property. Who knew, right? So we're going to have to get out. Okay, if it was up to us, just so you know, we'd stay here probably forever. We'd just keep renting. I mean, just keep giving and keep going and keep doing what we're doing. Maybe we'd have to go to 2 services. Who knows? But our desire is to be faithful with what God has given us at the time He's given it to us. God has continued to bring people to us. Okay? There's a gentleman named Jan Vale who attends here now. He's an architect. He has been one literally for 112 years. Okay? No, I'm kidding. Slightly less than that. He's been an architect for longer than I've been alive, and I got some gray hair, okay? He has built cities, he's built buildings, he's built churches, he's built country clubs, you name it commercially, he's built it, okay? He's at Christ Point, all right? He's brought Bill LaHue, who's had over 30 years in the commercial real estate. He's been in the church bond business, okay? He goes to Christ Point. We have Seth Haynes, who has been our finance guy for years and years and done so just incredibly faithfully. We have Olivier Henry, who's been a part of the team that's gotten us to this part as far as thinking about the land and how to use it and what that looks like. God has brought us the people. Okay, we have a commercial contractor who I'm not going to mention his name because he just started serving with us last week and he may not be ready for that. but his name eventually will be mentioned probably. But God continues to bring us people that are just all in. Okay? And that's a beautiful thing because that's how the body of Christ works, right? So where we are is that we're now a more mature family. We've grown up and it's time to start talking about money. Okay? We have enough now that if we don't talk about it and we don't pray about it, we'll waste it. Okay? So that's why we're coming to you now. Where we are going. We need a permanent facility that will further our focus and desire to point people to Jesus. We need it to be permanent, at least as far as permanency can go from an earthly standpoint. We're planning on 3 phases, and these are the drawings that you were handed. Okay, if you have these, if you look on the first page, Jan put this together. This isn't a computer. I just want y'all to know. This is a dude sitting down with a ruler, and I'm going, "Whoa, this is cool." So we're working on a rendering for this. There's so many moving parts to this. I got a lot flowing through my head, so I want to make sure I cover the basics and the key things. But we're going to have a Q&A after, and Phil will go over this again in some more detail next week to cover things I missed. Okay, so there are going to be 3 phases. The first phase, if you look on the first page you have, that's the front of the church. Okay, that's the front part. You will enter in on the side, and that's the drawing down below it. Okay, these are the elevation drawings. Okay, so that's the front entrance to the side. And when you come in, if you look at the floor plan, you'll see that we have 400 seats. There'll be a gathering area in the middle. Okay, and that's the initial floor plan for what we're doing. There's a lot more detail to this that we'll get in later. Okay, but I just want to give you an overview. If you look at the third page, this is the roof pitch in the middle where you'll be able to see the second story, where the second story is going to be housed. Okay, and that's going to be part of phase 2 that we're hoping to be able to squeeze into phase 1. Okay, because there will be a second floor for, we're trying to accommodate the Sunday seating, then adults, children. There'll be a kitchen up on the second floor. And this will all be housed. And then there's the third phase that'll be an add-on to the side here. Okay? That'll allow us to continue to grow. All right? Now, we can have more conversations about the details of that. We've engaged an architect to put the rendering together, the most updated version of this, so that it'll look really nice. This is the visual that we have as of now. Okay? Does that make sense? So the total cost of this project, phase 1 primarily, perhaps squeezing in phase 2, is $2.6 million. Okay? So we either need financing or we need a check that clears the bank for $2.2 million. Okay? We're praying for a check. We're praying for multiple checks. We're also praying for God to help us to see what He wants us to do from a financing standpoint. The first phase will take 18 to 24 months to complete. And when we're done, we'll move immediately into phase 2. And the way we're doing, and this is the beauty of having really smart people around the table that have done this before, is that if you do it right, you can accomplish a lot of what you need in phase 2 in phase 1 when you're designing it. Okay? So that whenever it's time for phase 2, maybe it makes sense to do it right away. But if it doesn't, there'll be a lot fewer steps that we have to go through to get there because of the work we did in the beginning for phase 1. Okay? So what we're looking for, what we need as a family, as the people of God, is we're coming to you again because we need more money. This is a capital campaign. We want to raise, we need to raise, because we have gone to banks. Just to summarize this, we're talking to about 4 or 5 lenders. We have a couple that are very close. We're going to get this done, okay? The part of we're putting pieces of the puzzle together. So the part that we need to really focus on today is the capital campaign. And we're looking to raise $20,000 per month in monthly giving above our current operating budget, okay, above current giving, for the next 3 years. Okay? We're asking each person that calls Christ Point home to figure out where they fit into that number. Okay? What's interesting, the good news, is that we've already secured at least 40% of that. Okay? We have between 8,000 to 10,000 a month of the 20,000 that we need already accounted for. Okay? God is good. He continues to show up. Now we need to fill in the rest of the gap. The key thing to remember, I want to use a quote here, is give your coffee money whether or not it's a latte. That's from James. James said that on Friday. I wanted to say that and give him credit for that. The number of givers really, really matters. Okay? So we're going down two tracks. Okay? I'm going to give you some of this I'm learning. I kind of figured, have a little bit of experience of this, but I'm really learning it now. Okay? There's the track that we're going down where it's the legit construction part that has to do with moving dirt, putting up the building, and moving in. Okay? Then there's the track where we're dealing with the financing. And it's basically a beauty contest. Okay? We're trying to look good enough for them to say, for the lenders to say, yes, we'll loan you money. If you've had any experience with a bank, no offense to bankers, okay? But who do banks want to lend money to? People that don't need the money. Okay? As soon as you initiate and start talking about your need for money, they're going to say, why do you need the money? That's not and then you start telling them about how much money you have, then they go, well, then why do you need the money? And then whenever you don't need the money, they'll go, hey, we'll give you the best rate right now. We'll give it to you because you don't need it. Okay? So I say that to go that banks will lend money, but it's putting pieces of the puzzle together to get to the point where they say, yes, we're ready to do this. Every bank that we've talked to has said yes. They haven't said yes to the amount that we need. That's where we're inching up closer and closer and closer to get the amount. Does that make sense? So part of this is the track we're going down to actually build it. The other one is the track we have to go down to get the financing. The moment we have the deal closed with the bank, we will start moving dirt. Okay? Any expense we put towards that before we have the deal closed, we have to explain to the bank. That's why we have $750,000 in the bank and we still owe $265,000 to the lender of the land that we bought. Okay? We have cash accounting. This gets into people that are a lot smarter than me when it comes to numbers. But you have to explain all these expenses, and those ratios can hurt you when you go to get the financing. So just because we're not doing, you can't just kind of, this doesn't make sense to me. Well, of course it doesn't make sense. Do you ever talk to a banker for very long? It doesn't make sense. Okay? You ever talk to a builder very long? It doesn't make sense that this has to be done first and then this. So that's why we have to be open-handed and suspend our desire to think we know more than we know. And that's why we continue to pray and beg God to show up. Okay? If God doesn't show up, guess what? We can't breathe this next breath we have, much less build a building. Okay? So God will show up. And lastly, just to kind of summarize this, this is not the end of what we're going to talk about. This is the beginning. We're only going to grow in our maturity as a church. And what this means is that we'll be having more of these family meetings. We need to talk about money. We're going to have to talk about money. A lot of people have attended our churches since they've been around, specifically because we don't talk about money. We don't even talk about an offering. I mean, our finance guy had to say, hey, can you put a box in the back and just bring it up every now and then? Okay, we don't do that. Why? Because we'd rather not. But we have to. God blesses us, and it's a requirement that we do that. Okay, and we're going to use this as we've always used a place as a tool to point people to Jesus. That's why we're doing it. Okay? So we are going to go all in to get to this permanent facility so that we can, people that you show up, you have to really want to get here right now, right? It's not very visible. Imagine when we're visible. Then you throw in the gospel. Then you throw in just the community we have. There are people that are driving up and down this road right now that God has pointed and designed and assigned. They're going to get saved here. They're going to call Christ Point home. Okay? They're people that you go to school with and they're in your neighborhoods. That's why we're doing this. But it's going to require us to have some family grown-up conversations where, we say, hey, we need more money. Okay? God has the money. He's given it to us. So that's where we all come in. Okay? So you have this commitment card. Okay? This is the card. You've read it. We're asking you to let us know by May 19th what your contribution will be. $20 a month, $2,000 a month, whatever it is. We need monthly ongoing contributions. We will take a lump sum, okay, if you are inclined to do that. But what the bank wants to see, what we need to see, what we need to know is that we can count on continuing contributions. What's interesting to me is I've talked to some missionaries about supporting them financially. And they say, you know what, we can get people to give us lump sums for projects. People want to talk about, hey, you get $5 a Bible. We can get people to do that. We can get people to build a building. What we have a hard time doing is helping people pay our expenses so that we can actually do ministry for the long term. It's the ongoing, the meat and potatoes of ministry is the seemingly boring, not necessary monthly contribution that's on auto draft that you did last month, the same thing, and you're wondering if it's still even needed. Yes, God uses it, and that's where the reward will come in for us. Okay? So we're going to ask you to let us know by May 19th with the contributions beginning on June 1st. Okay? We've set up the ways that you can do that here, and pray about it. The answer is yes. It's just a matter of the amount, and God will use it. Step out in faith. That's what we're asking for. Okay? Now, I'm going to do something slightly dangerous, and that is open it up to questions. Good question. If it's delayed 2 or 3 years, we would be looking probably for another home. That's just my initial thought. Yeah, that's right. We're looking at so they go. If you do the math, right, our lease is up in June. Our plan is once we have financing to go back to the county to ask them to extend the lease. Okay, the time you go to entities like that to ask them for a favor is when they can see evidence of you actually needing it and it being a legitimate request. Okay, we don't want to ask them before we break ground, because we're just another church that put a sign up that doesn't have the money. Okay? We want to ask them once we have the money and we start breaking ground and we go, hey, this is the date. Okay, our move-in date is November 30th of 2025. Can you throw us a bone and extend it longer? Now, I think we have a reasonable chance of that. But we don't know for sure. Be praying. Prayer, it has to be bathed on all of this, because we need somebody to move with the county to make that happen. But that'll be part of the approach.
So a couple of months ago, I actually pulled up to the CP house and I saw Jan out there measuring stuff and whatever, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he had mentioned that there was a possibility of moving the chapel over there, and I didn't know if that was like still on the table. I would love that. I just didn't know if it was like what's the word on that?
That's again something we would ask the county after if we can do that. If they're going to demolish it, then yeah, we're going to ask them if we can move it.
Yeah, and we know that like when they signed the contract, the county did, they can't touch the barn or the chapel for 5 years. So they can't. You notice they've knocked down a lot of the stuff out here. There wasn't anything, but they can't touch this or the chapel for 5 years, and so.
But yes, we would try to. If we could move the chapel, we would love to move it. If we could pick this up and move it, we would love to move it. All things are on the table to figure that out as we go. Here's the thing. So we have a budget. That's what I said. So the track, one of the tracks we're going down is the budget that we show and talk to the bank about. Okay. Then there's the actual budget when we go to build and move dirt and put up the structure. Okay. If we can save money doing this by finding an easier, faster, softer, quicker sweat equity way of doing it, all those things are going to be discussed. Okay? We are going to look for ways to take our dollar and extend it as far as we can. Because here's the thing, the more we don't spend on a building, the more we can continue to give and go. Like, we are keenly aware of the choice that moving and building is going to impact our ability to give, perhaps, to the 1-7s of the world temporarily. We may not be able to be as open-handed. We're always open-handed, but we may not be able to just kind of handle it without really having to ask a ton of questions. Okay? I mean, as a family, right, when you have $100,000 in the bank and you have $1,000 in the bank, decisions can be a little different, right? So we got to factor those things in, and we're going to be having those kind of conversations as we go. And that's why it's so awesome to have the team that we do, and which is how we function. That's why God's been good to us, because we've functioned in a really wise way. Yeah, as soon as we close on the land, we were actually thinking about doing that earlier. We've got a quote for $36,000 to demolish the buildings and clear some of that out. But yeah, as soon as we close on the loan, we would have the bulldozers here as soon as they could get here. Like it would be, and whatever beside the only things that are going to stand are going to be where James's office is in, right? The CP house. Yeah. We're going to keep as many of those trees as we can. We're going to try to take some of the wood from the barn. Okay, like we love this. Okay, how many people are here just because you go to church in a barn? How cool is that, right? So, and you happen to get the gospel, as I say. But it is cool, right? We love the vibe of this. We love the way it feels. We just love it. We've grown to love it. And we're going to try to duplicate that as much as we can. The building that we're looking to build will be a steel fab building. It's going to be, we're finding the most efficient way to create another tool that allows us to not have to move for a while. Okay, that's what we're doing. And we're going to refurbish it or fit it up. I mean, like, there are already eyes on that to go, here's how we can do this to make this look like a barn on the outside, to have the wood feel, to make sure that we're keeping as much of this as we can. If Jan was up here, he would be going, Billy's not describing it nearly as well as I could. So, like, if there'll be times over the course of this when we will have more than just me up here sharing, where we can ask, people can share that, and we'll have some visuals too. That's the other thing that we're in the process.
Patrick's got a question.
Yeah. Right now, the people that are around the table are getting us, are moving the needle to get us to the financing part. Once we break ground, yes, we will be having, I don't know what that's going to look like yet, because I've never, this is new to us. Jan is going to, is putting together a team that will oversee what will happen then, and that's when, yes, there will need to be people that are involved from different aspects. Maybe interior design stuff, shopping stuff, or buying things that will come down the road as well.
I really like what you said earlier about our ability to continue to serve the community, 1-7 and other communities, and then I think you just spoke with transparency on like how building a building can have ramifications on that. And so I think everybody, whenever you have a building, would like it paid off as soon as possible. But at the same time, I guess I just get concerns about paying off our building to help us. How does that balance with continuing to give to the community? And when do we initiate a phase 2 or a phase 3? And how do we do that trade space? And that might be a longer conversation, that would be prayerfully considered. But as we go along, I'd just love to continue to hear how we're trying to balance creating a space that facilitates our ability to impact the community.
Yeah.
So just you can give your initial thoughts or even long-term thoughts.
There's a lot there, and we are totally transparent. I've often said that, and I just believe this in my own life, in my own business, and I've seen it with the church. I've seen it with other things. There are seasons when it's wise to remember that it is possible to be penny wise and dollar foolish, right? It is possible to continue to just give, and not put back and think of the ability to establish a permanent location and find ourselves homeless, moving around and other things. And so there is a time to kind of go, okay, what does it look like to do this well and continue to give the way we've been giving and be as generous as we've been? If we can do that, we're praying for God to do that. There could be a scenario where we need to limit how much extra we put out. And I don't mean like in terms of anything. I'm talking about in terms of our current structure, our current giving. When we allocate 15% of what comes in towards our missions partners. There could be a season when that has to be 10.
Yeah.
Okay, or it might need to be 7.5. There will never be a season, as far as I'm concerned, where it'll be 0. But there could be a season where we pull it back with the idea of getting in a facility and trusting God to allow us to then be able to give 15% of a much larger number over time.
In the prayer,
okay,
the way this is set up, the 20,000 extra per month, that allows us to continue to operate as we are with our operation. That's why we're saying this is above and beyond what we're currently giving, because we have that floor of like what we're currently doing. We're going to continue to do that, and the 20,000 additional covers all that. And so we aren't just saying just 20,000. Like above that allows us to do even more and to get to phase 2 and whatnot. And so we want to continue to be generous and continue to do things we're doing while we're doing that. And that's why we're coming to you.
Well, and that gets into the other track. So when I'm in this mode of going down this track to get financing, I'm always like, that's the question when I picture like the worst case scenario. My mind goes to the worst case scenario. If we get the $20,000 a month, or when we get the $20,000 a month, nothing changes. Okay? Like if we get the money, we don't stop. We don't stop giving. If we don't get the money, we got to do something. I mean, we live in the real world here. Okay? Here's the other part. We're not the glue holding anybody's salvation together. Okay? We never give as if we don't give, then 1-7 can't function. I'm not that. I stopped being that arrogant quite a while ago, because I've seen people go, the ones that are doing it, give. If you don't give, we're going to go here. We're just going to keep moving because God will provide. Okay? So the other part of that is to go, if we continue to be generous, if we pray, okay, if we're praying, these numbers are going to be met. Okay? We're going to get where we want to go, and we're going to do it, and it's going to be a lot of fun because God's going to continue to show up. But there are decisions, there's ripple effect to the decisions we make, and we're looking for every way possible to not have to change anything about how we currently function from a giving standpoint. We're not adding staff. We're not pouring in money to other things. We want to continue to be able to spend $10,000 to pay for a mower down in Honduras if they need it. If we continue to be generous and God keeps showing up and we keep we keep moving out in faith, then the resources are there. They've never not been there. I hope that helps. That's a great question, and that is an ongoing conversation. Don't take everything I'm saying here as the church's position forever on how we're going to do that. I'm just saying I've been thinking about that since the beginning. One of the bankers said when we met with him, I see a lot of money going out. What do you do with that? Answer that question for 200 people. Yeah. Those are just things that the bridges we have to cross, and I'm begging God to show up so that when all of us stand in front of Him, He'll say, well done.
I'm going to take 15 minutes or so to share sort of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Really, the big picture here is if you call Christ Point home, we want to invite you to partner with us over this next season as we look at putting a permanent facility on the land we have purchased. And so if we look first at sort of where we have been, the journey we've been on, Christ Point started back in 2007, and we've been renting the whole time. We've always been small, And we've never been interested in being a mega church, and that hasn't changed. We still are. The culture is who we are. We want to point people to Jesus, and we do it through the 4 E's. We've been intentionally very generous with how we've given money. We out-hit our size because we have generous people, a generous God who gives us, and we give back, and we're able to pour out what we've been given. And over the last seasons, we've acted like a small little family, right? Young family. We've had enough money coming in. People have given, and we've been able to give out and be generous with that. So we rented for many years at the YMCA, about 10 years, and then we moved over to Cox Mill. And at Cox Mill, COVID hit. We were there a little over a year, and then COVID hit, and we were homeless. And so as it happened, we had Brandon Lindsay knew Donnie here at the barn, and we came here for a week, and just with the intent of trying to find a place where we could stay. And as it so happened, we're still here. The county purchased the land about a year or so ago, and we're currently leasing from the county. If we could continue to lease here, we would. But as we were looking for a place, because we knew this was going to run out, we were looking for a place to lease or buy, and Donnie's brother, Tommy, had their family property over here, 6.5 acres, which he so generously sold us for about half the price. We bought it for just over $500,000. It's a little over 6.5 acres. It's worth between $1 and $1.5 million right now. About 3 years ago, we came to our body and said, hey, be able to purchase this, we need an additional $7,500 per month over the next 2 years to be able to purchase that. And if we can't do that, then we won't purchase it. If we can, then we will. And our people then committed to like not only $7,500, but an extra $10,000 a month above and beyond our operating budget, which allowed us to continue to do what we're doing, but also purchase this land. So we owe just over $250,000 on that land now. And so since then, where we are now, we've seen significant growth. Coming to the barn has allowed us to have the barn on Sundays. We don't have it through the week, but we've been able to move our student ministry to the evenings and just do things here more permanent, but still we can't use it throughout the rest of the week. Our intent's never to build a building and just have it sit. If we could have just a simple place like this and just wear it out throughout the whole year, every day of the week, we would, and that's our intent over here, to be able to have a permanent facility where we can wear this thing out for God's good and His glory. So God continues to be generous to His church, and He continues to mature us. Our kids have now grown up, and other families are coming, and we just see, like, we have from kids, like firstborn all the way to retired, and so it's neat to see His family growing. And so our current lease right now ends June of next year. Again, if we could lease here, we would. But God, in His timing, brings the right people. So Jan Vale and Judy, Jan has been an architect for over 60 years. He's done architecture all around the world, from country clubs to city designs to golf courses. So he is a few years ago, he wouldn't have been here. Now, as such a time as this, God has brought him. He's brought Bill LaHoo, who does church bonding. And so he's got connections throughout the city from a financing standpoint. We have a member of our body who's a general contractor, and Olivia Henry has helped move us this far in the process too. So God has brought the right people in the right season for this next season. So where we're going to go, like if you in front of you have you have two pieces of paper. You've got this little commitment card right here. I'll walk through that in a minute. And then you have this little guy right here. It's a design. But let me show you a few of the things we're looking at. So this is a picture of part of our land. It's estimated projection building costs of $2.6 million. We currently have $750,000 in cash, which is a really good thing. We could pay off the land right now, but commercial lending is different than personal lending, like getting a mortgage. And so we have to look good for the bank for them to loan us this. And so we aren't going to pay off the land right now so we can have the cash. But additionally, we're praying for an extra $20,000 per month to cover the cost of paying for the building over the next 3 years. And what that will allow us to do is continue to operate as we've been operating. like everything we've been doing, but the additional $20,000 a month allows us to cover the mortgage of the new building above and beyond, so we can continue to point people to Jesus in this area. That's what we want to do. Our vision is to point people to Jesus. That's it. We want to bring people to Jesus and grow disciples. The county owns this, and so we're going to ask the county, once we get everything lined up, we would like to be able to extend at least another year, but that's not a guarantee. So, but God will provide. He always has. And so what you have in front of you is the commitment card. This commitment card basically gives you an outline of what we're asking for on the front, and on the back, it says, over the next 3 years, we will commit to making a monthly donation to Christ Point that will go towards the new building fund. And so you can either fill this out online or you can do paper. So our building is going to be just under 12,000 square feet. And so if you see this right here, this is the side and the front view. And again, it's going to be a simple build. We don't need anything fancy. We just need somewhere where we can like wear it out to point people to Jesus. And that's it. So this is a steel building. You'll have some brick. You'll have some wood. And then on the inside, you'll see the floor plan. Currently, we seat 200 in here. This has seating for just over 400 people. You can see the seating in the sanctuary of just over 400 people. You see the stage over here on the left. And then you see the kids' ministry over here, the nursery. You'll have a big area for the kindergarten through 5th grade. And you have a few other classrooms. You have a little gathering area in the back, bathrooms and stuff. If you look at the next slide, this is the side view. So phase 2 would be a second level over all the kids' area. This is sort of for our young adults and adult ministries. This would, the left side would overlook the sanctuary, sort of have glass there and a little balcony, and then folding walls there. You have a kitchen upstairs, a big meeting area. And so ideally, the extra $20,000 a month would allow us to get to phase 1, and anything above that would go towards phase 2. We'd love to be able to do phase 1 and 2 together. So we get to be a part of what God's doing. And if you call Christ Point home, we invite you to partner with us. Partner with us as we point people to Jesus. And again, this is not about a building. We've been around since 2007. God always provides, and He always will. This allows us to sit permanently here with thousands of people who drive by there on a daily basis. A lot of them don't know Jesus. Back here in the back, a lot of people don't know where we are. We get out front, we're gonna who knows how many people are going to come to Jesus because of what God does. And so we just want to be open-handed with what God has for us. What we know is that when the county bought this from Donnie Ayler, in the contract, there was a contract that said that they couldn't touch the barn or the chapel for 5 years. And so they bought it just right around a year and a half ago. So they can't touch. So the county has 33 or so acres here. So they can't touch this. So the hope would be, because they can't touch this, we could hopefully get this for an extra year or so. But I don't know what they're going to do with this. But the nice thing is we have 6.5 acres up there that's going to back up to a park that the county owns and operates. And so if we could stay, we asked them. We said, we asked if we could stay here. And they said, good luck building. And we asked for the chapel too. We asked if we could move the chapel and just take it off their hands. And so we're still asking for things, but we still need to move because the timeline's running out here. And so the question was, for those online, the question was, does the Parks and Recreation own this? And they do. We haven't been in a spot where we can have a facility for the whole week. Everything we do points people to Jesus. All of our ministries, the men's ministry, women's ministry, kids ministry, student ministries, everything we want to do is point people to Jesus, and we do that through the 4 E's. And so we would make sure that we want to use this for our ministries currently, and allow them to use the facility to bring others in throughout the week. And so we would use this from a facility standpoint, but we'll have as we grow, we're going to have we'll have someone over grounds, we'll someone have over faculty, but we don't have a current plan right now to say this is how we're going to use it throughout the whole week, but everything would flow through our ministries, like our men's ministry, women's ministry. Like currently we meet over at the men's ministry, women's ministry, they meet over at the CP house, And so we use the house over there a lot, like for retreats and for some of the students go over there, and we use the fields and stuff. And so it would open the opportunity for us to do a lot more, like through the church, from a ministry standpoint, to reach the people around here.
We don't want to function in the way where we're the island and we say to the people like on shore, like, hey, come to us. Like, we're the destination. As Phil said, we want to be a people who go. I think there's also been this just real practical reality along the way in our church's history where we've realized some of the drawbacks of leasing space. Not that we would do it differently, but we were in Highland Creek Elementary School 17 years ago, and we were told by the county, we're going to double your rent in like 2 weeks. And we were a small little church, and we're going like, that's a problem. And then we went to a YMCA, and we were there for 10 years. And quite honestly, we've told people before, like, we could have stayed there another 10 years. We were talking to them about what would it look like for us to stay here forever. And someone from the Y came into my office one day and handed me a note and said, hey, we decided we're going to go in a different direction. Like, completely blindsided us. We got a call on a Thursday in May of 2020 and said, hey, good news, bad news. Bad news is all the schools are closing down. I don't remember what the good news was. But again, it was just sort of this reminder that, hey, you're just so you know, like you're renting, you're leasing space. And again, I mean, churches do that. It's not. But like for us, there's also in the midst of that been this desire where if we could have our own space and we can be a people who gather to scatter. So we want to gather, we want to worship, we want to bring people from our community here, give them the word, and then encourage them to go. And we want to be the kind of place that when someone else goes, hey, we need a meeting space. We need a facility. Like, we've been there before. We want to be the kind of place that can open their doors and say, yeah, you can come. This is God's.
I like the analogy when Jesus comes back, like when he comes back to destroy everything, they look at our places like, man, they've already worn that thing out. It's already destroyed. Like, we've worn this thing out. We just worn it out.